In this session, we'll learn how to create a dynpro component. Then we'll learn how to design the layout or the screen. Thirdly, we see displaying of we display list of data in the screen. During this creation of your application or the component, we will be learning few set of terminologies like context binding. Then we see component, controllers, node, etc. So while creation of an application, let's go procedure by procedure. First, creation of a dynpro component. As we are aware, WebDynpro app or WebDynpro applications can be created only from the transaction SEAT, which would be a single point of contact or a single transaction code to create WebDynpro applications. From the pick list, select WebDynpro component or interface and enter name of your component. Generally in ABAP, we call, for reports we say like ABAP report, or you call module pool programs, and basic language would be object. Likewise, even in WebDynpro, we call them as WebDynpro components, or in a common language, you can call it as an object. The naming standards to create the object or the WebDynpro component would start with either Y or Z. So I maintain the naming convention as YSG, and let's define the name of the component as display. Okay. And when you click on enter or when you click on specs icon, it gives a certain pop-up saying like whether the object should be created or not. When the object does not exist, this particular pop-up gets prompted. And to create an object, click on yes. Basically, in ABAP, short text is mandatory. But whereas in WebDynpro, short text is not mandatory. If required, you can enter the short text, else no. Let's do short text to display list of materials and select WebDynpro component radio button. We generally create WebDynpro component. The difference between WebDynpro component and component interface is that a component can be defined or can be created like an interface. Okay. When we generally select WebDynpro component, and when a component is created, component gets created with a window and a view. Okay. And by default, name of your window would be name of the component. If required, you can change name of the window and name of the view. For time being, let's keep as such. I say continue. Let's take this under local object. For the first time, try to activate component. Now, as I said, when a component is created, component gets created with one component controller and one interface controller. Every component will have only one component controller and only one interface controller. And by default, for the first time, component gets created with a view and a window, which are nothing but view controller and window controller. Like component controller and interface controller, we do not see the names view controller and window controller. By default, view is nothing but view controller, window is nothing but window controller. Okay. Now, for today's session, we see a basic point is that I just need to display some list of data in a table. Okay. So, first we come in here. Let's talk of ABAP. In case, if you are developing a report in ABAP, and the requirement would be like this, for example, display list of materials in a basic list. This would be your requirement. Now, when this requirement comes up, first step, what would be our first step? We declare structure with required fields, right? And we declare structure, we use types keyword, and you say begin of, for example, I say Tivamara, and say end of Tivamara. And let's take, for example, I say Matna, type Mara Matna, and say here is DA, type Mara, here is DA, and say here NAM, type Mara, here NAM. Now here I say table Mara is a structure with set of fields, right? And what would be our next step? We do data declaration. Like you will be declaring internal table taking a reference of the structure Tivamara, and we declare a work area taking either structure of type Tivamara, or we say WAMara, like line of Tivamara. Next, what would be the third step? Fetching data. We fetch data from database. So if you select star from Mara, or say select Matna, here is DA, here NAM, from Mara into table LP underscore Mara, I say for example up to 50 rows, right? And finally, what would be our first step? We display data in the basic list. So for this, we use statement write command, and we display data in the report. When coming up to the same set of, likewise, how do we develop an application or an object in dynpro? So first, the first step is we had created an object. Now, let's say even in the module pool is a screen programming, right? The same way, now I need to design the screen. This is view controller. Just coming to the point, this is your view controller. Okay? And within the layout, we design our screens using set of UI elements. All these are UI elements. Now, before we design the screen, with a list of, like the way you create a structure, generally first, you need to create a structure here. Here, we do not call it as a structure, but here we call it as a node. Node, to create a node, right click on the context, say create node. And let me declare name of the node as material. The way we had given the name of the structure as Mara. Here I'm just giving the name of the node as material. Okay? And here you are aware like the fields what you need. The same way all the fields are from one structure in the database or from your DB table. The same way when you're trying to copy the fields from the same structure, then what you can do is you can just declare the structure names here. The structure in the sense name of your table which is available in the data dictionary. Okay? And coming to the concept of cardinality. The main concept of cardinality here is in ABAP, Mara, the structure do not have memory allocation. No memory allocation. Structure do not have a memory allocation. Only when a variable is declared of its type, only then the memory allocation would happen. But whereas in dynpro, a node will have a memory allocation based on the cardinality that is defined. Now, when you are trying to display more than one record in the screen, then the cardinality would be either 0 to 1 or 1 to n. In what case do we go for 1 to n? In what case do we go for 0 to n? We'll see in the later stages. First select the cardinality as 0 to n. It means that this node the node material can hold more than one record. It is the meaning of that. Okay? Now, when you click on add attributes from structure, only when the structure name is defined, only then you can click on the button add attributes from structure. In case, say, if you do not define the structure name and if you click on add attributes from structure, then we get it prompts a pop-up to enter the structure name that is required. So just enter the structure name and click on the button add attributes from structure. Select the fields that are required. So I just selected randomly few fields and I say enter. Now you see 6 attributes added to the node material. In ABAP we say Mara is a structure with set of fields. But whereas in dynpro, in the context we say material is a node with set of attributes. What is the main important? Now here would be your question, why are we creating node in the context? Here only through the context data can be displayed in the screen or the data entered in the screen can be accessed from the context. As a developer is restricted to the context. Now what are the data I need to display in the screen, or what are the data that is entered in the screen? If I want to read it, then we can read the data only from the context. So it means that context would be a single point of contact either to display data in the screen or to read the data from the screen. And context acts like a buffer. Buffer for what? Context holds data of a controller. As I said, every controller will have a context. There are different controllers that we have seen. There are different controllers like component controller, interface controller, view controller, window controller, custom controller. Every controller will have a context. And context of that particular controller, the data of that particular controller will be stored in the context. The data which is to be displayed in the screen. Okay? Now, taking reference of this particular node, we create a table. Okay? Now, here to create a table, SAP has provided us few templates, which are the templates which is used regularly in the daily life. Here, this is an icon which we call it as code widget, and these are the three standard templates that are available. Basically, to create a table, we select table template and click on continue, which is nothing but, if you are aware with module pool, we had a table control in module pool, just like the same way. Now, to create a table, you need to provide some reference with which, but generally in the module pool, what we do, we assign some structure name to create a table. The same way, we have to provide some node of your context, with which particular node of the context table should be created. Now, as we are within the view controller called main, you have to click on the context button. When you click on the context button, it displays you a pop-up with all the available nodes of your context. Okay. Now select the node with which you need to create a table. So I have selected the material node and I say continue. Now all the attributes, these are the list of attributes that are available in the node, and each node has been assigned with one UI element. Text view is an UI element which is used to display data in the read-only mode. The data can be displayed in the only in the non-editable mode. And the text view UI element has a property called text. So generally what happens is, the text property of this UI element will be binded to the attribute. Now, whatever the data that is available in the attribute will be displayed in the text view because from this particular text property. And here, the main point to be seen over here is binding. We call this as context binding. As we are using code widget, we do not see physically what is context binding. Okay, so in general, context binding means the relation between view controller, layout, say UI element, and context, nodes or attributes. The relation between view controller, which is nothing but layout UI elements, and the context, nodes and attributes, are called as context binding. Okay, context binding will be defined between UI elements and the nodes and attributes of the context. Might be a question, why do we define context binding? Simple. As I told you, context has a data. If you check here, this is your context and this is a layout. Within the layout, we are designing the screen. And within the context, there is a data which is to be displayed. Now first, taking a break for a while, and first I am just clicking on continue to design the screen first. Now, there is a screen here. If you see here, view has got created with a table. Table has 6 different columns. Each column has one UI element, which is called text view. As I said, text view has a property called text. And here there is a property called binding. Binding exists, right? When you click on this, you can see here, the master attribute is binded with an UI element of which is displayed in this column, first column. We call this relation as context binding. Why? Because, as you are aware, data will be available within the context. So, to display the data in the layout, we are defining context binding. And context binding will be defined only in the view controller. That is the reason I had mentioned here the relation between view controller. Okay, so context binding will be defined only in the view controller between UI element and the nodes and attributes. Okay, now I'm fine with the screen designing. Now my next step is displaying the data. Where do we generally write logic? Now we are aware that the screen part is designed. Now we need to display the data. So to display the data, we have to write a logic. Now, generally within the methods, we write logic. And here, there are few common methods which are available. These are the standard methods. Every controller will have predefined methods or standard methods. We call this method as hook methods. The functionalities of hook methods are like events in a report. What are the functionalities of events in a report? There is a sequence. Which event is to be called when? The same way, in dynpro, this is the hook methods. Every controller has hook methods, and these are the two common hook methods which are available in every controller. What is the sequence of calling of hook methods? We see in the further session. For today, in this session, we see WD doInit method. WD doInit hook method is the first method that will be called when a controller is called. And this method works like initialization. We use this particular method to set some default data or to clear any kind of an information, etc. So, within this particular method, we do write our logic. First, as we are aware, in dynpro, we have to follow MVC architecture. It means that model, view, controller. And as per MVC architecture, view and models should be segregated. It means presentation layer and the business layer should be segregated, as we are aware. Within the model holds the business logic. But as of now, in the current session, what we are going to do is, we are not following MVC architecture. We are writing the logic, instead of logic should be in the model, what am I going to do is, I am going to write logic within the controller, which is against to the framework. First, in the first session, we see how to write or how to control applications from the controller. Then, step by step, I will try to show you how to follow the exact process of MVC architecture. First, as you are aware, WD doInit as a method which will be called initially when a controller is called. And WD doInit method will be called only once in its lifetime. First, let us fetch the data from the database. Fetch data from Mara table. Declare, I say LT underscore Mara. I say type table of Mara. Select star from Mara into table LT underscore Mara up to 50 rows. Now the data which is in LT Mara has to be displayed in a table. Fetching of the data from the database where we write ABAP logic. Whatever the data that you're trying to display in the screen, or if you're trying to read data from the screen, then here we write dynpro logic. Dynpro logic comes into the picture when you're trying to communicate with the views or the screens of dynpro. Now, set or display data in the table UI element. For this, what we do, we write dynpro app, or we say dynpro logic. Okay. Now, first point, why are we declaring internal table? As you are aware, internal tables are created as a reference of the database table, because as we cannot access database tables directly, we are creating a reference variables. Right? The same way, in dynpro, the context cannot be accessed directly. The data which is within the node cannot be accessed directly. Like in ABAP, the way we create internal table, a work area, a reference variable, the same way we have to create a reference variables to the node. First, we declare a variable, say LO underscore ND underscore material. What is this? As we follow naming conventions in ABAP, even in dynpro, LO means local object. As we are using this variable locally within this particular method, that's the reason why we have defined the variable as local. ND represents node. The way when you see, as soon as you see LT, you say that okay, it's a local table. If you say WA, oh, it's a work area. The same way, when you see a variable with ND, it says that okay, it's a variable which is acting as a reference to the node. Now, to which particular node? That will be defined by material, name of the node. Okay. Now, what is its type? In ABAP, if we say we have declared a variable LT Mara and it is type of a table and where a structure name is given. Now, in dynpro, we work with interfaces and classes. And here, as we are working with interfaces and classes, we use type reference to, and the interface is if underscore wd underscore context underscore node. This is a predefined interface which assigns all the properties of a node to the node variable. The way when you say type table of, when we declare type table of, then only then it becomes a table type. Else it would be a structure or something else. The same way, when you declare a variable of type reference to this particular interface, only then this variable will have all the properties of a node. When comparing with ABAP, all the properties of a table type. Now, assign reference of the node to the node variable. The reference of the node should be given to the node variable. Now, this variable has all the properties of a node, but this particular node doesn't have any structure or reference of any node. To assign the reference of a node, we say LO underscore ND underscore material. And as you are aware, node is created to the context. As I am aware, the node is created to context. But how does the program do that? First, before you calling the node, first we should identify the context. To identify the context, we add a predefined attribute called WD underscore context. WD underscore context is a predefined attribute which refers controller context. Every controller has a context, and every controller has a predefined attribute WD_context, and this refers or identifies context of a controller. Now I say WD_context, and WD_context is also type of if_WD_context_node. This particular interface has a method called get_child_node and define name of the node, which is single quotes and caps. I say name of the node as material. Now there is a use case the reference of the node would get failed. In that case, what you have to do is you have to take the reference first. Check whether the reference of the node is assigned to the node variable or not. If it is not in shell, then we go further. So, step 1, we had assigned the properties of a node to the node variable. In the step 2, we had given the structure or the reference of a node to the node variable. Now, what is our agenda? We have to set the data which is in LT Mara to the node LOND material. Right? Now, I say LO_ND_material. LOND material is a node and which has all the properties of IFWD context node. And this interface has two set of methods. Here we see we have a method called bind_table. Bind_table is a method which is used to set table type data to the node. Here LT Mara is a table type. So we are trying to set table type data to the node. So we use a method called bind_table and define LT_Mara. Okay. Let's apply the print. Save. And now, first, let's activate the component and create an dynpro application. To create dynpro application, right click on the component, say create dynpro application. For a practice, it would be best say app. And I say list of materials. Save. And click on execute button, or you can right click on the application and say test. Now we can see the data which is displayed in the table. This is our first set of session. If you have any queries, please contact me. You can call me on my number or you can drop me a mail. Thank you.